Okay, so we're holding Siman Kuf Pei Tes of Hilchos Niddah Yud Zayin, Hashem Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes, and Chof. These are not so difficult, but they do introduce a different area of Vesatot. Up until now, we were more familiar with a Veset, whether it's regular or irregular, that is determined by a certain time that has elapsed, a certain day of the month that has come and gone perhaps. And it could also be Oina Beinonis, we spoke about, once a month, if it's not a Veset Kavua. But there are other situations that can bring about a period. Let's call them external reasons. Something that is not necessarily based on a particular day or an amount of time transpired, or a particular day of the month, right? It could be something external she's done. The truth of the matter is, it really makes no difference as far as Hilchos Niddah is concerned. In other words, the Tahara, a woman that became Tmeya, she saw blood, assuming it's blood from that place. Regardless of what caused it, what brought it about, she's Tmeya and she has to go through the Sidrei Tahara, in other words, through the whole process of becoming clean again. To wait the required amount of time, the Hefsek Tahara, Shiva Nekiyim, 7 clean days. And so this is only going to make a difference right now, the Halacha that we're going to be learning now, as to figuring out if there is some sort of pattern here. Because when we talk about pattern, we're talking about a sort of clock, a physical clock that exists within a woman that is either tied to a certain amount of days or somehow to a day of the month that just seems to work. And sometimes it's off, but it comes back more or less at certain intervals. The Mishnah, the Gemara, discusses, however, scenarios that there's no clock involved, but there is some external reason that causes. And one of those external reasons could be jump rope. I'm using jump rope as well. She jumped. It could be she jumped from the stairwells. It could be the second story. She jumps. She likes jumping. And sure enough, what happens, every single time she jumps, she gets her period. Now, does that mean that she can establish a Veset? That's our main concern right now. Does she become unclean? We said yes. That's not the question here, if she's become unclean. Because regardless of how it happened, she's unclean. The question is what happens if she does this 3 times? Does that establish a pattern of Veset? And that is a Machlokes Rishonim, based, of course, on how you read the Mishnah, how you understand the Gemara. Because it's not so clear what the Maskana was. So Rashi's Shita, the Razah, the Ramban, the Tur, is yes, she could establish a Veset through this kind of pattern. Every time she jumps, she gets her period. The Rambam, the Rashba, the Raavad says no. You cannot establish a Veset by only a physical activity. In other words, by doing something, or by an oiness, in other words, something that comes by accident, happens to her externally, like shock, fright. That is not sufficient. That by itself is not. Now I say by itself because we will soon see that it is possible for that to combine with a day. Oh, that's different. Then we're having a Veset Murkav, a compound Veset, right? Compound would be a good word for it, something that consists of 2 factors. That possibly. But this by itself, external, we've never really heard, in other words, that this should be possible biologically, anatomically, that a woman should establish by clockwork, a pattern based on something external. It doesn't seem to be too strong of a factor in establishing it. Now, yes, it could happen that she becomes unclean, but not necessarily to establish a Veset. So it's a machlokes. That's all we need to know right now, that it's a machlokes rishonim. And as we're going to see that the Mechaber says that she's not kovaat through just this alone. Now, from the Mechaber, it's also understood that not only she's not kovaat, but she's not chosheshet either for Veset she'eino kavua. You know, there are times when a particular day brings about a chash for the next month, one more time, that if she jumps, maybe next time around I have to be choshesh once. No, it's not necessarily mashma like that she would even have to be choshesh that next time she jumps, that she's going to become unclean. But from the Ramah, it seems to be, as we'll see inside, that he is choshesh. In other words, he also holds like a mechaber that she's not kovat a vesed just by an external reason. However, she is choishesh for the next time around for vesed she'eno kavua. And that I think he takes from the Hagos Maimonos, that is of that opinion. That in other words, it's an in-between. In other words, it's not a vesed kavua ever. It does not establish itself as a vesed kavua, but at least for one time, she needs to be choishesh and watch out and check herself. Maybe she did become unclean as a result of the jump. Now, so what's the main reason why there would be a machlokes here? Because we say that the teva, the nature of a woman, is to see a vesed or to have a vesed at certain time frames, or in certain ways. In other words, certain intervals that happen every so often. Those are more of the norm for a woman to have the vesed. Kfitza, as it's called here, jump, or some other activity that is external, is not part of her nature. In other words, if it happens, we're more likely to say that this must have been either incidental or some weakness in her body that produced it. In other words, the way we explain it is that this is not the nature of the woman to see. The body does not behave that way. And the fact she did see it is obviously something wrong, or something that happened coincidentally. However, jumping is not the only one. The Tosefta does bring down other examples that are called seeing machmas oines, as it is described here. Seeing as a result of some external activity that happened by force. In other words, it was forced on her. Something forced the blood to come out. That they are also not considered vesed. One example is, let's say she was carrying a heavy load. That's another one. That's another example that's made. So that in itself would not constitute a vesed, even though it repeats itself several times. All right. So let's see it inside. That's actually beginning with C Yud Zayin. Mechaber says like this: Kol vesed shenikva machmat ones. Any vesed that is established as a result of force, an activity that involves some sort of force. Kigon shekofzo veroso, like she jumped and saw. Afilu roso bo kama palmim, even though she saw several times this way. Im lo kova oison liyomim, if these activities are not connected to a certain day, eino vesed, it in itself does not become a vesed, shemipneha oines roso, because the reason why she's seeing is directly related to the oines, not to her body. In other words, the oines brought about the blood, not that the body at a certain time caused it to happen. And that makes a big difference. Says the Ramah, right? As we just said, the Ramah says that she should be choshesh, which means once. That once came and she didn't see, then she doesn't have to worry about it in the future. Mechaber continues on to say, kafzo veroso, one after another. She saw several times after jumping. Kavalo veses liyomim beloy kfitzas. It could be possible that she is establishing a vesed for certain days without regard to the kfitzas. For example, Ketzad, kofzo be'echad b'Shabbos. Let's say she jumped on Sunday, but also and she saw dam. Ule'achar kof yomin, after 20 days, kofzo be'echad b'Shabbos, she jumped again on a Sunday, but also dam, and she saw blood. Ule'achar yutes yom, after 19 days, kofzo be'yom Shabbos, she jumped instead of Sunday, she jumped on Shabbos. Ve'lo ro'oso dam, and she did not see blood on that day that she jumped. But la'achar Shabbos, right after Shabbos, ro'oso beloy kfitza, she saw this following only one day. On Sunday, she saw without the jump, but she did jump on Shabbos, right? So what happens? Harei nikva echad b'Shabbos achar chof. Now, what are we seeing? She has established a pattern of every 20 days on a Sunday. Because of this third event, this third incident, we are able to look back and say, you know why she really saw when she saw? Not because of the jump, because on the third occasion she jumped on Shabbat, but she only saw on Sunday. Just like the other two times when she jumped and she saw on Sunday. It's just that on those times she actually jumped on Sunday. But we didn't know if it's because of the jump or because of the Sunday. Now that on the third time she jumped on Shabbat, on Saturday, and she only saw on Sunday, now things become clear. It is indicative that what's causing the blood to come is not the jump, but the day. Niddah shayom gorom lo velo akfitzu kvar nikva yom ze gimel pamim. Now, since you have it 3 times, I think any such examples would qualify for a vesed as a result of days and not the kfitzas. Is that clear? In other words, here, and this is an important halacha to remember here, because we're going to see another type of vesed where we do say, even though they're 1 day apart, yes, it's because of that happened the day before. We're going to come back to it. Here, what are we seeing from the Mechaber at least? By the way, not everybody agrees. I mean, there is a Ramban and a Rashba that say we do attribute the seeing of the blood on Sunday to the jump on Shabbos. Now that's going to make a world of a difference, because if you do attribute it, that means you need to look out for the two. Because if you have one without the other, once you establish a vesed that is a compound vesed, that is based on 2 factors, you need to have the 2. If only the day comes and nothing else happened, and she's supposed to on that day do something or feel some way, and she does not, then it's not it. It has to be the 2. Once we've established that she always gets her period, whenever she does, 2 things have had to have happened. If only one is happening, then it's not it. And we're going to see it's more common with a certain feeling that she's experiencing, as opposed to an oinus, as opposed to an actual activity. But here too, if in fact this was a real fact, where the 2 always happen together, when she jumps, and it's on this day, she sees, then obviously you're having the 2 together. A jump, an activity plus a day, that's yes. What that means is that if she jumps not on that day, she doesn't have to watch out. Oh, you better check. No, I don't have to check. It's not that day. Just because I jumped on that day, it happened. But if she just jumps from now on another day she has to check herself? No. Who's to say that the jump on another day will bring it? Yes, I would agree with that. Or if that day comes and she didn't jump, she doesn't have to watch out. She doesn't have to be concerned, because we've established, assuming she did, that it's only come on that day if she jumped. So that it could be a vesed. Yeah, I think this is very interesting halacha. Yeah, jumping. Yeah.
It's like a selfish video.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I can't help but I hear between of these
kangaroos.
Yeah. Very
Exercise of sorts. Yeah. Yeah.
Activity.
Right.
That means that basically she should not do that. Any 3 days if she jumped, every day she did that, she would have to be choshesh.
Yeah, well, that's what we said before.
No, but
That activity in itself does not really do anything.
Right. So
It doesn't go anywhere.
Said that it did would basically mean she could the following month and
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so we said that we don't go by that. In other words, we don't say that a vesed can be established just from that alone. Yeah.
If we say a vesed was Yechoshish, then only to worry about it each jump.
Right.
But since we say just establish a vesed,
right,
and it has a particular day,
on a particular day,
on
right,
a particular day when it's happened before,
right, or every certain amount of days, a flogger,
so interval.
Right.
If she jumps, that is not part of either the inter date.
Right.
Have to check.
Exactly. It doesn't have
Because
to worry.
why? Because we don't establish a vesed. Only if we establish a vesed, then check. Is that what we're saying here?
Well, no vesed.
Since we just get this talui that we also
Right.
have a date.
Yes. Right.
And since here in this particular nor an interval.
That's once she has a vesed.
Once she has.
Right.
So.
Okay. If she does not have a vesed, remember what the Ramos said. That the next time she jumps, she has to treat it like a vesed she'ena kavua.
Uh-huh.
But you said there was an opinion.
Right.
That said that created a vested.
Right. We don't hold like that.
We don't
With
hold
the old, just about nobody holds like
But
that.
that
Right.
opinion
Right.
should prevent her able to jump. Because then she couldn't be.
Right. Yeah.
Well, wait a second. If she be with her husband?
No, but she'd have to.
No, she could. No.
So it was only if she and saw blood.
No, remember what happens. No. Let's go back to a very important detail in the past. What's the big deal about a vesed kua, other than the fact that it's predictable? The big deal about it is that we know it's coming, right? Number one. It's also for her to be with her husband once that day has arrived. Also to be with her husband, if you hold that established as a vesed, if she jumped. But what happens if the day came, and she checked herself, of course, no blood for some reason. She jumped, some reason, no blood. she's allowed to be with her husband. After the oina, the whole day goes by, or the whole night goes by. Remember the oina? The period that she's expecting it? That's point number one. Point number two, the big deal of Vesed Kavua is that if we say something is a Vesed Kavua, you need 3 times to uproot it. That's all. That's the whole big deal about Vesed Kavua.
Oh, but minutes ago.
Yeah.
If we have a Vesed Kavua and need her to see blood, if that event does not occur on the, she wouldn't need to check herself, if I understand it correctly, because we have a Vesed Kavua.
Right, that it consists of 2 factors instead of 1.
Right. So we have Vesed
Having one and not the other is not something that she concerns herself.
Because we have Vesed Kavua.
Yes,
so
only.
that's another effect of the Vesed relieves her.
In this case,
of the obligation when only one.
Right, that's another detail of a Vesed Kavua that is a compounded Vesed Kavua of 2, made up of 2 things.
Like this, and
Right.
Now
Sure.
let's say she has a Vesed Kavua, she sees blood.
All right,
That's
sure.
And it has happened, she jumped. She saw blood as well, not on days.
Right.
It's happened once, let's say last month. She
Right.
jumped 10 days later after she saw blood jumping.
Okay,
And now she has a Vesed Kavua
sure.
every 30 days.
Right,
Now she jumped again, someday, not
Right.
the same day.
right.
And she, even though she has a Vesed Kavua, it's not a Vesed Kavua, that's a compound Vesed Kavua. She has a Vesed Kavua.
A regular Vesed Kavua, yeah,
And now she jumped
right.
on Sunday.
Right.
But she have to check. She saw blood previous Sunday.
Yeah, like a Vesed She'ena Kavua. But we will see that. That's a halacha later on. That's discussed later on what happens if she has a Vesed Kavua. And within that Vesed Kavua, she does something, she has it as a result of doing something else.
She doesn't
Not
have
the typical.
No.
Yeah. Like your
We
example.
don't know if she has. She
Right.
just jumped.
You remember,
Well, she have to check.
yes,
That's my question.
generally we say she has to be choishish. Why? What's the whole chashash for Vesed She'ena Kavua? What's the chashash? The chashash for Vesed She'ena Kavua, which means I have to check it once to see if there's anything there, and then forget about it the next month, right? If it's not there. Because we are concerned with a chashash for a Vesed She'ena Kavua that maybe she's establishing a Vesed. So when she sees dam as a result of jumping, let's assume that we hold Vesed by jumping. Let's say we assume, it could happen.
No. That's what we do now, but we need that criteria.
But
That's my question. My
No.
question is, now that we both criteria,
Right.
I said she jumped.
Right.
We're saying now we need both criteria.
all right,
And we don't have both criteria. She jumped, but we
Right.
don't have the same.
right.
And she has a Vesed Kavua depending on every 30 days.
So I
She
said,
have to check herself.
once she has a Vesed Kavua,
Yeah.
then it's less of a concern. Okay?
Check her.
Yeah, about checking. But that's the question. It's a question later on.
All
Perhaps
right, so
we'll
later
leave
when we
it.
get to
We'll
that,
leave
we'll
it for later
clarify.
on.
Okay,
Yeah. Now, but you see that the difference is once she has a Vesed Kavua, we did discuss it before. I mean, there are the question of Vesed betoch Vesed. The only difference, was all of a sudden she sees again. She just had it 10 days ago. So this throws everything off, right? As far as Haflaga, as far as Yom HaChodesh right now, right? It could throw everything off. So there was a machlokes there on how to do the calculation. What are you concerned with? Now, here it's a little bit different because we're dealing with a vesed that consists of 2 things and a physical activity of sorts that got in the way somehow. So we'll see later on if that can interfere at all with her regular vesed, or do we say you could ignore it because that by itself is never really sufficient. But that's not so simple because some say you always have to look out for something that may repeat itself. That's what a chashash of Eino Kavua means. So therefore, maybe we treat it like a Vesed She'ena Kavua at the most. Just check herself that night, just in case something happened as a result of her jumping. So we'll see that a little bit later on. All right, before we go on, the Shach here makes a few points. If for a woman it happened once, that she jumped once, and she saw, so he explains that Eino Chosheshes, he holds that she doesn't have to be concerned from a one-time jump for the next time that she jumps. When would there be a chashash, according to the Shach, that she would have to be concerned? If she jumped 3 times and she saw it. Now, even after jumping 3 times, we hold no vesed is being established here, but the chashash does exist. She doesn't have to be choishesh for the day, in other words, the day of the month, or the haflaga that went by either. Because as a result of this being external, she doesn't have to be concerned, not only with the jump, that if she jumps again it may happen, but also with that day that it happened, or the haflaga from the last time she saw it. she can just basically ignore it if it only happened once. Why? Because we assume that since the seeing of the blood is immediately after the jump, that it's most likely has to do with the jump and nothing else. But we are concerned that she may at some point be korvea a veset murkav, a compound veset. So if she saw it on a particular day, like let's say on the 15th of the month, and we see a trend here, then obviously we begin to become concerned that she's establishing a pattern. In other words, we look out for it. Now, right now she doesn't have to be concerned with it, but we look out for it that she may be establishing a pattern that is a veset murkav of two, a jump and a day of the month. So if she jumps again, she has to watch out. All right. Let's go on. Sif Yudches. Kafza beyom yadua. Let's say she did jump on a certain day, berosh chodesh, or be'alef b'shavat, or on a Sunday, ve'ro'asabo, and she saw. V'irakin begimol rosh chodesh, and this happened, it repeated itself 3 times on Rosh Chodesh, or begimol echad b'shabbos, or 3 times on a Sunday. Kavalo v'says, so now yes. So since it has repeated itself on the same day of the month, or the same day of the week, with the physical activity that she jumped in this case, then she has to be choshesh every single time that day arrives. If she jumps, that she may be seeing it. So what happens if let's say Sunday arrived and she didn't jump on that day, or she just jumped on a Monday, another day. She doesn't have to be choshesh anymore. If she didn't, because she didn't jump, she's missing one of the conditions that bring about the period, or she's jumping on another day. That means she's not jumping on that day. Because this vesed has established itself very, very clear on a fixed time plus that activity called kfitz, in this case jumping. So if any of the two are missing here, she doesn't have to be choy. Once she has a vesed, the mechaber says she has to be concerned when the two are together, not with one. Now, with haflaga, by the way, you would have to have it 4 times. In other words, you would have to have 2 days together to be able to see a haflaga. No, let's say we don't have a day of the month or a day of the week. You have kfitza with haflaga. So you would have had to have seen it twice to have a haflaga. You can't just judge by once, because a haflaga means 20 days later, right? The first date that she saw blood is not based on a haflaga. It's just based on, she saw blood someday. So to see a haflaga, you would have to see it 4 times. In other words, 4 periods, 2 lapses of time, right? As opposed to day of the month, day of the week, it's very, very clear. So a haflaga is possible, but it would require at least 2 haflagas, where I can see from here to here, from here to here. Yes, she's been seeing every 25 or 23 days, and when she jumps. So again, that's also a possibility. He doesn't mention that here in his example, but that's a possibility too, in theory, that she can establish a vesed, a compound vesed that's based on a haflaga of some days, plus the external activity like jumping. Now, let's say she jumped at 8 o'clock in the morning. Till when is she asr? Till when is she choshesh? She's choshesh for the whole oina, whatever that oina is. In other words, till the end of the day. Just because she didn't see now, right after her jump, doesn't mean she's not going to see. She can still see it later.
So even though the blood responsibility to check herself over a time period of it.
Yeah, whatever that oina is, as we saw before, the oina is significant.
So there can be delayed reactions.
There can be also a delayed reaction. As we saw here, it could be in one example where she jumped on Shabbos and she see it till the next day. The only thing is that, according to the mechaber, that is more indicative that the day is what brought it about and not the jump. Since the 3rd time around, it didn't happen on that same day. If anything, it's indicative the jump we thought caused it. No, the 3rd time we see it that it happened the next day. Therefore, it's not the jump, it's the day. Because it always happened on the same day. On a different, the 3rd time she jumped on the day earlier.
But the blood that she came was the interval or the right date.
Or exactly. So we've seen that it's really the date that is making it happen, and not the.
You have 2 events that might be responsible. At a point in time, there's only one event responsible, and the other is obvious.
Then you can tell, yeah, but not everybody holds it that. It was as we saw that Rajman Naman hold. No, it could be that triggered it. A also.
24 hours later.
Yes, as long as it's only 24 hours, it could be triggered, and therefore you would need to have both. So this would make a difference. If you hold like that, you would have to have both.
But then it also has to check.
No.
It can trigger 24 hours later.
No, but she's
Now that I say the jump of yesterday and the blood of today belong together.
No, but she's always seeing it on the same day. It's on Sunday.
This time.
No, the blood she's seeing on Sunday. The jump was the day.
So there was
A trigger. The trigger could have happened within 24 hours. It still could.
But then she also has to.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't really have to.
We have a precedent now that a jump.
No, but the precedent is that she saw 3 times on the same day. But she sees it together with the jump. Listen, it doesn't mean that she has to see it within 4 hours, 5 hours. We give it 24 hours. We say that the jump is triggering again.
It can occur because of the jump on that day.
Right.
Shouldn't be hours later for the blood that could possibly occur.
Yeah, but she's only has seen blood on a Sunday, so she's establishing a vested.
Said she always jumped and saw blood.
No, on Sunday.
Oh, so now she jumped a day early.
The third time around, right?
No, I'm talking about. I thought you were. She jumped on the right day, but then she saw blood the next day.
Right.
So the next day wasn't the right day.
It was the right date.
No, I just said I thought we were talking a case.
Oh,
she jumped on the right day to see blood, and she saw blood the next day.
That wouldn't work.
Day.
That wouldn't work. No.
So then, in that case, the jump and not combine.
Exactly, it would not combine. All right, now we've come to the fun part. Ready? See if you test. Jumping, like you said, is not something that we want to do all the time. But this CFU test in Chaf and Chaf Aleph deals with what's called in the medical world PMS. PMS.
Women have all these weird things it's always abbreviations.
Premenstrual syndrome. Okay? So CFU test, Chaf, pretty much the whole next season deal with it. This is a very interesting area because it's very relevant. Every woman pretty much knows somehow she's getting it. You'll hear from her. You'll notice it too. Changes in mood, cramps, nausea perhaps, no appetite. There's a whole list of things and every woman is different. Okay, well, since this is a fact, could we use those syndromes or those symptoms to establish a veset? There's a third area, which we'll talk about another time, is that every time she has garlic, she gets. So that's eating certain foods. But this one, the one that we're going to cover now, is the more important one.
So when you establish a
veset, yeah. And the answer is yes.
So
here, there's pretty much no argument.
Wait, sir. I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
What establish a veset?
It means that every time she gets her period, she has a particular symptom.
Fine. So
she didn't get that symptom, she doesn't have to worry about it.
So now her checking herself on the
veset
depends on
that symptom,
on
getting the symptom. Yeah, you're right.
No symptom.
Yeah, no symptom. Yeah. Now, granted that a lot of women will feel something, but that it varies. It's not the same one all the time, and therefore they have to basically figure out or calculate their veset based on days and so forth, the typical regular way. But it's very possible that a woman would have a compound veset that every time she gets her period, she also experiences things. And we will see what those things are inside the halacha. But this could, of course, make a big difference. Now, maybe before we read it inside, the reason why there's pretty much a consensus is possible, as opposed to jumping, is because this is much more natural. Here, it's the body, the actual time when the body is doing something that is bringing or causing this symptom. As opposed to before, when we talked about jumping, it's the jumping that's causing the body to feel the way it is. Therefore, this is going to be much more natural for a woman to experience. This is more real than jumping. Jumping, we say, it's something wrong. Something that happens, not the typical. It's not usual. But somehow the force or things that we do sometimes can cause the body to behave that way, to react that way.
First symptom cause her.
No, not the bleeding. The bleeding causes the symptom.
Whereas there, the jumping caused
the bleeding.
So when we have something that's a cause for it,
yes,
the cause, in this case, the job, the effect.
Exactly.
But when we have the blood, that doesn't.
There's more of a
They always say
likelihood.
that if the symptom appears, why should she feel right now?
Right.
That's not because
That's
it's
correct.
not the
It's correct. Yes, yeah.
pending
Right.
in causing that.
Right,
symptom.
exactly.
So-
Yeah. Now, why is this so important? Because it's so natural. The majority of poskim hold that a woman can establish a vesed by these symptoms alone.
A symptom.
What did we say before? By kfitza alone, we said no. The Mechaber says no. Jumping 3 times does not establish a vesed. It has to be choishish, perhaps. Jumping does not establish a vesed. An external activity does not establish a vesed. You did it 3 times, did it 10 times. No. Something wrong with her body. Maybe she's not healthy. She's not feeling well. A symptom that is an EMS symptom, right?
EMS.
No, not EMS. PMS. A PMS,
Those abbreviations.
yeah. A PMS symptom is more natural, more common for it to happen, and therefore it is possible for it in itself to become a vesed.
Something and your
All right, go ahead.
Your comparison to the jumping. If I understand it correctly, the symptom will always occur to the actual blood, no? Because without that, why do we rely on the symptom? Because where will it come from if not from the fact that there's the event?
Okay.
But if the two are parallel, when will I have a case there won't be any blood?
No, a woman can have a headache at different times. She can have chills, hot flashes. Which
But
is,
if she's going to have the symptom, the blood coming
right,
soon,
right.
then will be followed by the blood.
Could be.
So when will I ever have the headache symptom for a pending periods or event?
Yeah.
When will I ever have the symptom without an event? If it's that.
No, there can be, and we will talk about that. We're going to talk about how the symptom has to surface in order for us to be convinced that this is the real thing, as opposed to just a migraine headache. That we will see what it takes, how the symptom has to appear in order for us to be convinced that this is it. But the only point I'm making right now is that it in itself, without a day or amount of days, can serve to establish a vesed.
And that question is
Yeah.
still not having to do with what
Right.
we're going to. If the sexual event occurring
Yes,
and it ends,
sure.
then the event establishes the vested because what does it mean that
Yeah,
the
but I don't
symptom
have to.
establishes the vested?
No, because I don't need days here. I don't need a day of the month. I don't need 24. I don't need.
You're saying the symptom can establish it without it being a compound.
Exactly, without being
Compounded
compounded with a day.
Regardless if it's compounded with a date
Right.
or not, there will be the event itself
Yes.
that will succeed.
She
the
has to
symptom.
watch out for it now. Yes.
That will succeed the symptom.
Sure.
So wouldn't the event be sufficient to establish the vest?
Yeah, but when did it occur?
When
How do I know when to look out for it?
okay, maybe I understand. So
Yeah.
let's see if I'm correct.
Yeah.
There can be that is established by the fact that everything gets a
Right, that's time. Right.
What's called it.
Right.
There can be this established by the fact 9th of the month. she
Sure,
gets it.
sure, sure.
Every 4th Saturday. she
Yes,
gets it.
yes, yes.
Here you're talking about we don't have a particular.
Right.
We don't have a particular. We don't have the fourth Shabbat. We have no such cycle or such pattern.
Yes.
What we do have, and the only thing we have, is that whenever she happens to get her period during the month, which could be
Yeah.
any day,
Right.
it will be preceded by her feeling
A symptom. Yes.
So the symptom here replaces
Replaces.
the interval,
Yes,
or the
that's
fixed
correct.
date, or whatever.
And why
This
is
period
and
is
why
jumping back
and
and
why
forth.
does this replace and not jumping? Because this is more natural. This is part of her body. It is quite common and frequent for these things to happen. So let's look at it inside, and we will see a list of what these symptoms are. But before we see it, it's interesting that the Rambam mentions symptoms as a by the way. This precedes the period, but he doesn't hold that this itself can establish a pesach, which is very interesting.
Unique opinion?
Yeah. Everybody else, everybody seems to be holding the Shulchan Aruch here passes like the Rashman, this is not like the Rambam, that it doesn't really depend on the time necessarily. All right, yesh kovat vesed al yidei mikrim sheyaru begufa. So a woman can establish a vesed based on symptoms that happen in her body. What are the symptoms? Some examples. This is not a very long list, but some examples. Kegon shemefaheket. So that's the word that's used. Now, what's mefaheket mean? So there's 3 pirushim. He's going to mention all 3. And you're going to see that all three are more or less related. What's mefaheket? It's dehainu ke'adam sheposhet zrootav machmat koved. Like a person who's spreading out his arms as a result of having all this weight on him. All right, that doesn't tell us too much. Or ke'adam shepoteach piv machmat koved. Or like a person when he opens his mouth that he's so tired. Basically, it's to yawn. Or ke'adam shemotzi kol derech hagaron. Or like a person who makes a sound through the throat, which is more like a burp. Now, these are all different opinions, different interpretations, I should say, as to what mefaheket means. But the general explanation here is she has a yawning. In other words, something that comes out of the mouth, something that she feels different about herself, and it's seen from the way she yawns or does something similar to that. All right. What else?
Where we learn to do these things?
Well, not in public, you mean. Yeah. What's another possibility? V'chen imitateshet derech mata, or if she has gas. Now, mitateshet, according to others, means to sneeze. So some say it's the upper mitateshet, and some call it the lower mitateshet. Now, aren't you thinking about something now, as we're reading the symptoms? Gas? What if she just ate beans? What if she has a cold, right? So we're going to see in the Mechaber later on that all of these symptoms need to be convincing. And how are they going to be convincing? That it's not the typical headache, it's not the typical chills or the typical sneeze. It's a lot. It comes back and forth every 20 minutes. In other words, it's a real phenomena. In other words, it's not something that is normal, that happens from time to time, that we all have. Or chosheshe befi kresa ubeshipule me'eha. Or she has abdominal pain. That's chosheshe befi kresa. Or bishipule me'eha. Or she has cramps. Shipule me'eha means in the lower part of her abdomen, more in the pelvic area, closer to the uterus. So I describe this as cramps, which is quite, by the way, one of the symptoms, one of the very, very common symptoms. Abdominal pain and cramps. Or shachzuot tzirei kadachot, or that she has hot flashes. That's how I translate tzirei kadachot. Because what's tzirei? Tzirei is not continuous. A woman can have a kadachat. She can have a fever. But the moment you insert the word tzirei is like contractions. It's like it comes and goes, it comes and goes. So what does a woman have before her menstruation period that comes and goes? Hot flashes. If you look it up, you'll see that that's one of the things. It could be fevers, it could be chills, but that's what tzirei kadachot would mean. Or sheroisho ve'evoreo kvedim alea. She's in tremendous pain, headaches. That's what roisho in voreo kvedim means. Pain or headache. B'chol echad me'elo, in any one of these, if she sees it 3 times in a row, and she sees right after that, kavah lo veset, that she has established a veset shebechol pam she chosheshes mehem asura leshavesh. Every time she senses them, she cannot be with her husband. Umihu bepihu ko itu shel pam echos eina veset mikva. But if you're talking about a yawn or a sneeze, one of those things that she just does it occasionally, a one-time thing, that does not in itself establish a veset. She's had to have had it repeatedly throughout the day. It comes back and comes back repeatedly. She's having this sneezing or this yawning. So if it happened to her that on 3 occasions she has had this very similar experiences, that time after time, in other words, every 20 minutes or so, it comes back, then she's established a veset. All these PMS syndromes in her body don't have a particular time that they happen. In other words, it's not based on a date, a time, an interval. It's based on that experience, on that symptom coming. But it could happen that it's compounded. She's getting the symptom, plus it happens all the time on Rosh Chodesh. So or by haflag, or every 20 days, then it's kavah of veset lizman ulemichush. Then she has established a veset of the 2, of time plus the symptom Kavala veset lezman ulemichush veset ve'eno choshesh elo leshneim beyachad, and she does not have to be concerned unless she has them both, the time and the symptom. Therefore, imigia es veloba michush, or sheba michush below ito eno choshesh. So if the time came, but the symptom is not there, or the symptom is there and it's not the time, she doesn't have to be concerned. Once she's established a vessel for the two, it's two or nothing. Comes along the Ramah and says, "V'davka shekavalo vessel l'shnayim beyachad." That's true, of course, if she's established the two of them together. Aval mitchilo, in the very beginning, she has to always be chosheshes lekol echad b'fnei as. She doesn't know if this is going. Perhaps this by itself is going to turn out to be a vessel on its own. So in the very beginning, mitchilo chosheshes lekol echad b'fnei asu ki eno yodas. She doesn't know eze mehen tikva. Which one will establish itself? Like a visit a dilug b'yomim, b'aflogo b'yomim. Just like we saw before, by dilug and aflogo, we don't know for sure as it's coming. Is she going to skip? Is this skipping going to really be a trend, a pattern, or not? So she has to be choshesh until she sees if it establishes it as a veset or not. So in the very beginning, you may have to be choshesh for certain days. Here on the Taz, even though the Ramah says that you don't have to be choishesh if you have the two, if only one of them arrives, the Taz says that for one of them you do have to be choishesh like a veset she'ena kavua. I think the Yosef seems to be saying the same thing. For some reason he didn't say it here. That once you have the two, if only one comes, it's at least like a chash of a veset she'ena kavua. The Shach holds like the Ramah that once you've established the two, however, then you don't have to be choishesh for one. I saw something very interesting in the Sefer Shura Shevet Alevi from Rav Posner, that with Veset Guf, when a woman is having these symptoms as indicators that her Veset is coming, here we're not makpid on oina. Remember we were makpid before, a Veset has to be an exact oina, either the day or the night. Here we're not makpid.
What is the wording?
Huh? In other words, I guess you can call it more strict, because regardless of when she had it last time, the symptom. She had the symptom last time at night. Now she's getting the symptom during the day. It's a symptom. It doesn't make a difference if it's day or night. It doesn't have to be that all three symptoms should be at night or during the day. So remember, with a regular vessel, it had to be exact for it to be a real vessel. So it's more strict. Yeah, because it depends on the symptom. All right, in Sif Chof, which is the last Sif that we'll do for now, we see two dinim. Piyako beis pe'omim berosh chodesh. Let's say she did yawn, assuming it's a yawn, twice on Rosh Chodesh beroso, and she saw, and she had her period. Then on the third time she yawned, it was not Rosh Chodesh beroso. So huvra ladova she'en Rosh Chodesh goyim ela piyuk. Then we see from this that it's not the Rosh Chodesh that caused or brought about the period, but it was actually the symptom that she had. Or if on the third time she saw Rosh Chodesh but without a piyuk, what does that show? Similar like we saw before. It's not the symptom that triggered it. It's the actual day that triggered it, and not the two of them, or the other one. What happens if she did have the symptom twice on Rosh Chodesh? Ubapama Gimel, the third time, Piyako bechof tes lechodesh, a day earlier, velo rosa, she didn't see. But Uber Rosh Chodesh rosa, but she did see the next day. On Rosh Chodesh, like she see the first times. But she saw it without Piyuk. Velo Piyuk. Kavalo vesel lepiyuk Rosh Chodesh. Why? She saw it, she had the feeling, the symptom a day early. Because Shepiyuk shel etmoil goram leriya shel Rosh Chodesh. This sneeze, the yawn, whatever she had the day before, that we do say triggered her period to come the following day. Does that sound familiar? Earlier in Sif Yud Zayin, we said just the opposite. We didn't give her a chance. According to the Mechaber, if she jumped on Shabbos and she had it on Sunday, and the last two times she saw it on Sunday too, what do we say? Sorry. It's not the jumping, it's the Sunday. Remember that? Even though the jump was the day before, right? We said, you know what? It's the day, it's not the jump.
Yeah. And
that makes a difference if it's the two or just one. It makes a difference. So we said, no, it's the day, it's not the jump, don't worry about it, you can jump all you want.
Yeah.
Jump.
Someone is preparing things.
Oh, right.
So the jump does not have to be in 24 hours.
What is that?
The jump
Right.
does not have to be in 24 hours.
Right, but then what happens?
No, just as a clock.
Yeah, it still has to be 24 hours.
The owner within 24.
Right.
No, it's not
Not
half
all
the day, not the end night together. 12 hours of the day plus 12 hours of the night. Because if she jumped Saturday morning, then by Saturday night she's not. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
so 1 second. So the example in City Design one more time was that she jumped on Sunday, she saw. 20 days later she jumped on Sunday, she saw. After 19 days she jumped on Shabbos and she did not see.
And on Sunday,
But on Sunday she saw. So what do we say here?
there's nothing to
The
do.
jumping has nothing to do with it.
24 hours.
In other words, you don't have the other way around. That the jumping has everything to do with it, because that we said is out of the question. Jumping does not establish the. So here we just said, you know what? It's not the 2. It's just a Sunday,
So the jumping is only right, but not for 24 hours.
not for 24 hours, right? In other words, even though it's within 24 hours, that we give it some room, leeway for saying that perhaps maybe it's related. Maybe I'm saying maybe because there's a machloikes. Mechaber says no, right? But the most we would give it is 24 hours. Mechaber says nevertheless say no. When it comes to symptoms, we say yes.
Now I'm having a big. So what is the she jumped on Saturday and on Sunday she saw? Then we say it has nothing. Say it has nothing to do. If the jumping is valid for 20 and she jumped Saturday,
It's valid for those who say that it matters, like the
so
Ramban.
these are two different opinions.
Right,
So
exactly.
according to the ones that say it has 24 hours, and of course if she saw on Sunday. For
Yeah,
those who say that it's not valid
Right.
for 24 hours, only by them, if she's on Sunday, it would not
the
be
reason why I said the 24 hours makes a difference is not because of by jumping it does, because over there it doesn't. It doesn't. We see that we go by the day.
That's our third issue.
No, it's not a third issue. The reason I mentioned that the 24 hours is significant, is because here, by symptom, you can't have more than 24 hours. In other words, if she sneezed on Shabbos and she had it on Sunday, we say, yes, even though it happened 24 hours before, it caused it. It was a
I'll
sneeze.
tell you why it's a third.
All right.
Because it's, our issue that we had
Yeah.
originally with the 24, purely jumping and sneezing. Then you can also reflect
All
on
right.
the sneezing.
Yes.
But first of all, I wanted to establish
Yeah.
how can it be that if she jumped on Sunday and the jumping, if she saw on Sunday, but then the jumping has nothing to do, and it's only
Right.
the day.
Right.
And on the other hand, we said that if she jumped in 24 hours, it's still. So now the answer was these are two different opinions.
Over there in the seif,
I'm talking only, there's not over there. I'm generally talking about jumping.
about
I'm not
jumping.
talking about-
Say that, yes.
With respect to jumping, there's two different opinions.
Yeah, it's correct. Definitely. Two separate opinions. Here with the symptom, almost everybody pretty much agrees.
Because I'll tell you why I'm asking that.
Sure.
Because there might be a different. I'm not sure about now.
Yeah.
The difference when she jumped and she saw within 20,
Yeah.
and she jumped again, and that repeats itself within 24 hours, then that might establish.
That's correct.
But if she
That is
jumped-
correct.
Okay, but if she jumped and she sees it normally,
Right.
and then it happened that she saw within 24 hours, that was.
No, you got it mixed up.
No, I do get
No,
it.
you're not.
That's my case.
No.
That's
One second. She jumped
Yeah.
and she saw the next day.
That's what
Is that what
always
you're
happens.
saying?
That's what always happens. Then her jumping one day and the next day would still be considered. That's established a method of jumping.
The Mechaber's example, she jumped on Sunday and she saw on Sunday. She
Right.
jumped on Sunday, she saw on Sunday.
Right.
Third example, she jumped on Shabbos and she saw on Sunday.
That's the Mechaber's example.
So she saw 3 times on Sunday.
I have a different.
And your example is?
She jumped on Saturday, she saw on Sunday. She jumped on Saturday, she saw on Sunday.
That's okay. Why?
Is that called a method of jumping?
Yes, why? Thank you for mentioning that, because that's really where I was headed. That's another detail. That 24 hours is the leeway, as long as it's the same. Exactly.
Right.
In the case of the Mechaber, it's not exactly the same.
But my question, now you can see the other side of it.
Yeah.
But if normally she jumps and she's within 12 hours, she sees within 12 hours. Now when she, and that's how it repeats at the time.
Right.
Now when she jumps and she sees 24 hours later,
Right?
then that might be sufficient to say the jumping and the seeing each other.
Right, because it's happening on a different day.
Right.
You're saying,
Because
yeah.
normally the jumping on this is within 12
Hap-
hours,
Yeah.
not within 24 hours.
It had to be in that case.
So on the third time when she jumps and she's 24 hours later, maybe that seeing is not mitzvah, does not combine.
It may not. It may
Whereas
not.
if she always sees
24 hours.
after jumping, they do combine.
They do combine, as long as it's within 24 hours.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the point of 24 hours. Whereas in Sif Chaf, it's a stronger case because it's more natural, that even though she saw it 24 hours before, and that's very different than the other two, we still say within 24 hours it can trigger.
That's what we're talking about, no,
Sneezing, yeah, it is normal, acceptable to be considered as one day, even though the other ones occurred on the same day. It's still considered as a veset of both, the day and the symptom. See, that's the difference, because this one is a lot stronger than the other case, which is not so common. So now, just to finish up, the Chavas Das over here says that if she skipped a month, let's say she had 4 months, so she's supposedly wants to establish a vesed with 3 months, and she skipped a month, and she did not have her sneeze or her yawn under Rosh Chodesh that she usually has. She's still kovas this. Well, because the fact that she didn't have it, she didn't sneeze, doesn't uproot, cancel the vesed. Had she and not seen, then it's not consecutive. Nothing happened at all. She didn't sneeze at all. And she didn't see her. So according to him, you still have the vesed. If Nisan, Sivan, and Tammuz on Rosh Chodesh, she had the symptom and the day. Even though here she skipped. But not everybody agrees with him. Some say she skipped. It has to be consecutive ones. So I thought that was interesting, because he says in order to be oiker vesed, you have to have both things not happen. I'm saying you have to have a situation where whatever usually happens doesn't happen. So in other words, to be oiker, it would have to be that she sneezed and she didn't see blood, or she saw blood and she didn't sneeze. But for not to have any of the two, it doesn't prove anything. It's just that she skipped it. In other words, since her vesed now consists of 2 factors, it would have to be that, in other words, that somehow it's not the same. How do you prove, according to Chavaz, that it's not the same? She sneezed, nothing happened. But for her not to see anything at all, according to him, it doesn't uproot it. All right, I think this is where we'll stop for now. Mitzvah Hashem will continue after Shua.